You've tried willpower. You've tried discipline. You've tried motivating yourself with deadlines and consequences, and none of it sticks, does it? Here's the truth most productivity gurus won't tell you. Your brain is literally wired to avoid hard work as a survival mechanism. When you sit down to tackle that challenging project, your brain interprets it as a threat and floods you with distractions to keep you safe. But what if I told you there's a way to hack this system? The 1 hour system isn't about forcing yourself to focus. It's about using psychology to make your brain crave the hard work instead of avoiding it. Today I'm sharing 3 proven frameworks that override your brain's resistance. These aren't my theories. They're based on decades of research from productivity experts like David Allen, Newport, and Charles Duhigg. By the end of this video, you'll have a complete system that transforms distraction from your enemy into your ally. Step 1. The 10-minute friction removal, based on getting things done. The first step is based on David Allen's Getting Things Done methodology. Allen discovered that most procrastination comes from what he calls unclear next actions. Your brain resists starting because it doesn't know exactly what to do first. This is where the 10-minute friction removal protocol comes in. Before you even think about the hard task, you're going to spend exactly 10 minutes eliminating every possible barrier to getting started. Start with the digital lockdown. Your phone doesn't go on silent. It doesn't go face down on your desk. It goes in a completely different room. Research shows that even having your phone visible reduces cognitive performance by 10%. Your brain is constantly monitoring for notifications, even when they're turned off. Next comes task atomization. This is where Allen's next action principle becomes powerful. Take your big, scary project and break it down to the smallest possible first step. Not write the report. Not even write the introduction. Something like, open the document and type the title. Your brain can't resist something that feels effortless. Now for the brain dump method. Grab a piece of paper and write down every single thought that's competing for your attention. The emails you need to send. The groceries you need to buy. The conversation you had yesterday that's still bothering you. Allen calls these open loops, and they're mental energy vampires. The reason this works is simple. Your brain has limited processing power. When it's trying to remember 17 different things while also focusing on complex work, something has to give. Usually it's the hard task that gets abandoned. By externalizing all these mental tabs onto paper, you free up cognitive resources for the work that actually matters. Your brain stops trying to be a filing cabinet and can become a thinking machine instead. This 10-minute preparation eliminates about 90% of procrastination triggers. You've removed digital temptation, clarified your exact next action, and cleared mental clutter. Your environment is now optimized for focus, not distraction. Here's the mistake most people make. They try to start the hard work without removing environmental friction first. It's like trying to run a marathon while carrying a backpack full of rocks. Technically possible, but unnecessarily difficult. The Getting Things Done system works because it acknowledges a fundamental truth about human psychology. We don't procrastinate because we're lazy. We procrastinate because our brains are trying to protect us from perceived difficulty. When you remove the friction and make the first step obvious, you remove the threat signal. Think about it this way. Your ancient ancestors needed to conserve energy for actual survival threats. Spending mental energy on complex tasks that weren't immediately life-threatening was a luxury they couldn't afford. Your brain still operates with this ancient programming. But now, instead of fighting this programming, you're working with it. You've made the hard task feel safe and manageable. Your brain stops seeing it as a threat and starts seeing it as just another routine action. This is why the 10-minute friction removal is so powerful. You're not trying to force focus through willpower. You're creating conditions where focus becomes the natural response. Step 2, the 50-minute deep work block, Newport's deep work method. Now we move into the core of the system, based on Newport's groundbreaking research on deep work. Newport, a computer science professor at Georgetown, spent years studying how knowledge workers achieve sustained attention. What he discovered changes everything about how we approach complex tasks. Newport's research shows that our brains have two distinct modes of operation. There's shallow work, where you're responding to emails and handling interruptions. And there's deep work, where you're engaging in cognitively demanding activities that create real value. The problem is, most people never actually enter deep work mode. Here's why. Every time you switch between tasks, your brain experiences what Newport calls attention residue. Part of your mental capacity stays stuck on the previous task. It takes an average of 23 minutes to fully refocus after an interruption. But most people get interrupted every 11 minutes. You're never actually focused. This is where the 50-minute deep work block becomes your secret weapon. We're adapting Francesco Cirillo's Pomodoro technique, but extending it for complex cognitive work. The original Pomodoro uses 25-minute intervals, which works great for simple tasks. But when you're doing something that requires deep thinking, 25 minutes is just enough time to get warmed up. 50 minutes is the sweet spot. It's long enough to achieve genuine depth, but short enough that your brain doesn't panic about the commitment. You're not asking yourself to focus for 3 hours. You're asking for 50 minutes, knowing relief is coming. But here's where most people fail with time-blocking systems. They think the goal is to never get distracted. That's impossible, and it sets you up for failure. Your brain will generate distracting thoughts. That's what brains do. This is where we introduce the distraction log, a tool borrowed from cognitive behavioral therapy. Keep a piece of paper next to you during your 50-minute block. When a distracting thought pops up, don't fight it. Don't try to push it away. Simply write it down and return to your task. The genius of this method is that it acknowledges the thought without acting on it. Your brain stops trying to remember the distraction because it knows the information is captured. You've essentially told your brain, I hear you, but not right now. Let me be clear about something crucial. Distractions during deep work aren't failures. They're normal. The difference between people who build focus and people who don't isn't the absence of distracting thoughts. It's how they handle those thoughts when they arise. When you write down, need to call mom, or forgot to pay electric bill, you're not breaking your focus. You're managing it. You're training your brain that distracting thoughts can be acknowledged and stored for later without derailing your entire work session. The expectation reset is everything. Most people think focus means having a perfectly quiet mind, but that's meditation, not productivity. In deep work, your mind will wander. The skill is in noticing the wandering quickly and gently, returning attention to the task. Newport's research shows that people who can sustain attention for 50 minutes without checking their phone or switching tasks produce work that's significantly higher in quality and completed in much less time. We're not just talking about getting more done, we're talking about getting better work done. The difference between shallow work mindset and deep work mindset is this. Shallow work asks, how can I get through this as quickly as possible? Deep work asks, how can I think about this problem in a way no one else has? That shift in mindset changes everything. Instead of rushing through tasks to get to the fun stuff, you start seeing the complex thinking as the fun stuff. Your brain begins to crave the challenge instead of avoiding it. This is why the 50-minute block works so well. It's long enough to reach that flow state where complex problems become engaging puzzles rather than overwhelming obstacles. Step 3, the 5-minute positive recharge, habit loop psychology. Now we come to the secret ingredient that makes this entire system stick. This step is based on Charles Duhigg's groundbreaking research in the power of habit, specifically his discovery of the neurological habit loop. Duhigg identified that every habit follows a 3-part pattern: cue, routine, and reward. The cue triggers the behavior. The routine is the behavior itself. And the reward is what your brain gets for completing the routine. Here's the critical insight most people miss. If there's no satisfying reward, the habit loop breaks down and the behavior disappears. Think about why you reach for your phone constantly. The cue might be boredom or anxiety. The routine is checking social media. The reward is the dopamine hit from new information or social validation. Your brain craves that reward, which is why the habit feels automatic. But here's what happens with most productivity systems. You do the hard work, the routine, but then you immediately move on to the next task. You skip the reward phase entirely. Your brain completed 50 minutes of challenging cognitive work and got nothing pleasurable in return. No wonder it resists doing it again tomorrow. This is where the 5-minute positive recharge becomes your game changer. You're going to deliberately create a reward that makes your brain crave the next focus session. First, celebrate the process completion, not the outcome achievement. This is crucial. You don't celebrate because you finished the entire project. You celebrate because you completed 50 minutes of sustained attention. The celebration is for showing up and doing the work, regardless of how much you accomplished. Your brain needs to associate the feeling of focus with positive emotions. Take a moment to acknowledge what you just did. You overrode millions of years of evolutionary programming that wanted you to seek easy dopamine hits. You chose delayed gratification over instant pleasure. That deserves recognition. Next comes the next step plan, borrowed from David Allen's Getting Things Done system. Before you walk away from your workspace, define the exact first action for your next focus session. Not work on the project more. Something specific like review the data from section 2 and identify 3 key trends. This serves 2 psychological purposes. First, it eliminates the friction for starting your next session. You won't waste mental energy figuring out where to begin. Second, it creates what psychologists call a Zeigarnik effect. Your brain will keep processing the defined next step subconsciously, making you actually look forward to continuing the work. Now for the real break protocol. This is where most people sabotage their progress. They finish focused work and immediately grab their phone to scroll social media. You just spent 50 minutes training your brain to sustain attention, and now you're training it to seek rapid-fire stimulation. You're undoing your own progress. Instead, use your break for movement. Walk around the block, do some stretches, get a glass of water. Movement increases blood flow to the brain and helps consolidate what you just learned. It's active recovery, not passive consumption. Here's the beautiful part. When you combine process celebration, clear next steps, and restorative movement, you create what Duhigg calls a craving. Your brain starts to anticipate the positive feelings associated with deep work. The hard task transforms from something you avoid into something you actually want to do. This positive recharge creates the neurological foundation for long-term focus habits. You're not relying on willpower anymore. You're relying on brain chemistry that naturally pulls you towards sustained attention. You now have a complete system built on proven psychological frameworks. 10 minutes of friction removal using David Allen's Getting Things Done principles. 50 minutes of deep work based on Newport's attention research. 5 minutes of positive recharge using Charles Duhigg's habit loop psychology. This isn't about forcing yourself to focus through discipline. You have the power to cultivate deep attention by working with your brain's natural patterns, not against them. Subscribe for more evidence-based systems that transform how you think and work.